Hey, what's up? Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to talk about the potential of Bitcoin to be a black hole in investing and kind of like getting investments coming from other asset classes and having a huge wealth transfer go into Bitcoin in the future. Also, we got here a call that Tron looks topish and it could go downhill from here. Also, the crypto dog says that a big move on Ethereum it's going to happen sometime soon, but he doesn't know if it's going to go to the upside or the downside. We're also going to talk about the average perspective of mainstream people, non-crypto people. What do they think about Bitcoin? We got here an interesting Reddit thread where people sharing their answers. I think it's very insightful. And also, unfortunately, we had the wife of one of the richest men in Norway. She was kidnapped 10 weeks ago, 2.5 months ago, and the news just broke out in the last 24 hours that she was kidnapped. And the kidnappers, they demand Monero ransom for her release. So they demand about 10 million euros worth of Monero, which is really a shame that this is how cryptocurrencies get mainstream, awareness. But it is what it is. Also, Nick Szabo says that central banks could turn to crypto to support their reserves. Yeah, just could use cryptocurrencies as a way to diversify their risk. So that's good to see it coming from Nick Szabo. Also, another bad thing is, so we covered yesterday that Julian Hozep, the founder of 10x, he just left their company, right? He just left. He's stepping down as the president of 10x. And now, after looking into the issue, I found out that there's a lot of red flags about him, about things that he was doing. And it looks like 10x is pretty doomed, and he was associated with some pretty bad projects. He was associated with some scam or some really shady other projects. So we're going to talk about it. We get some memes about him. Just not a good look for the space in general. It looks like he dumped a lot of pay tokens on Bittrex after he quit or during him quitting. Just not a good look for him and not a good look for the space in general. We got one of the richest people in the world investing in Bakkt in their first rounding. We're going to talk about Amazon. Could they enter the banking business? Could they compete with banks? And just what it's going to happen to fintech in the future, right? Or what is already happening right now. Also, we got the Bitcoin mining chip maker Canaan considering an IPO in the US. So it's China's second maker of crypto hardware considering doing an IPO. So pretty much a competitor to Bitmain. So yeah, what's up? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, there's so much going in the space. From what I see, Bitcoin is hovering around $4,100. Still looking for that breakout, but it might fail. It looks like we're just staying in that range for a really long time now, relatively speaking, in crypto, right? So it's been kind of quiet. We crashed all the way to 3,100, and then we pumped to 4,100, 4,200, and then right now we're around that range, and everybody's looking to see if we're going to have another breakout or if we're going to start going to the downside again. So today the market pretty much going sideways. Ethereum at $151. Ripple at 37.6 cents. Not too much interesting. I see here Tron is doing a massive pump, up 26.4%. Wow, Tron is just crushing it. They really know how to pump a coin. Pretty impressive. Yeah, so that is the biggest gainer of the day. Biggest losers is Holo, and I see Chainlink is also correcting a bit. But wow, man, it's impressive that Tron is doing so well in this bear market, considering that they have really weak fundamentals. Still pretty impressive to me. Like, you got to respect their hustle. Next, so Traders here says about, he just looks at the global institutional assets under management, which is about $110 trillion. And then he just shows you what are the number for crypto right now, how much is under management. It's just a tiny drop into out of all of the available assets under management, right? So you can see here that on this diagonal, only like you see on the bottom left, this little thingy of a square, the little tiny part of this one square, that is how much is stored in crypto right now, and it's just completely nothing. So Trace here shows that essentially no capital allocated to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, empty, infinitely expandable wealth storage vessel to absorb capital flows. As sterile asset, Bitcoin price increase is wealth transfer from other assets. A black hole on the world's balance sheet will be legendary. So this just goes to show how much upward room we still have for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrencies in general, but really for Bitcoin as a store of value, right? It is huge, and it's going to be crazy to see over the next 5, 10, 20 years to see this squares, getting more and more filled by Bitcoin and other assets, because it's definitely coming. It's going to be crazy to see this insane growth, right? Next, the crypto fam says like Tron might be done here at least for a little while. So it looks like he was wrong. He said it yesterday, and since then Tron pumped again very, very high. So it's hard to confirm when it's going to stop pumping. But yeah, I'm definitely not FOMOing at these levels. It's already looked very, very high, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to go lower. Also, the crypto dog says he thinks some move for Ethereum is going to come soon, whether it's going to be for the upside or for the downside. Next, average internet users, what do you think on Bitcoin? So in this thread, you got two types of comments. You got, first of all, people like you and I that are crypto enthusiasts, but sadly, they're kind of like shielding Bitcoin too hard, or they're trying to answer questions, and they're a bit annoying. And then you got the average internet user, which is commenting about Bitcoin, and it's kind of interesting to see their perspective, because most of the responses I've seen are kind of people that are just indifferent, or they're not that excited about Bitcoin, or they're like, it's just like whatever. To them, it's not really a big deal. So you see these two camps, the people that are in Bitcoin and the people that are outside of Bitcoin, right? The no coiners. And there's a pretty big difference. Here what people say, it's cool, would be a lot cooler if I had some. And then someone's trying to tell him buy $1 worth. And he's like, maybe one day, you see. So he's like, maybe one day, And then someone's trying to shill it, right? The earlier you buy, the more you get if you look over the long-term horizon. I don't like these shills. And then someone replies, early earns at $20,000 per Bitcoin must be furious right now. So people are like saying, look, the people that bought at the top got hurt, right? So then that's what they say here. They say, look, this is, you can lose a lot of money. Buying at the all-time high is one of them. Invest, and then we got a pretty bad advice here. Invest in the vision, not the price. The world is not going to stand still for naysayers because they wanted to. This is happening. It just started. So you see all this shilling, it just doesn't make us look good, just all this like invest in the vision, like we're not talking here about communism. This is an investment, right? People are risking their money here. We should be like logical and understand what's happening. And then we got some more shilling. Okay, don't start with the speculative S again. So yeah, you see, this is kind of like the point, the way the mainstream views Bitcoin right now, just a bunch of people shilling it, which is pretty annoying. I can definitely see why. Let me see what else. How exactly does it work? I don't understand. Let me see what else. Like a roller coaster, I certainly look from a distance and I never want to hop in. So it looks like people are not going to jump in anytime soon. I bought one Bitcoin at 1,000, sold it at 2,600, still made some money. I'm not mad. Okay, cool. Here, this is one of the core of the issues. One problem with Bitcoin I've discovered is people trying to sell it in a way a salesman sells a car or a door-to-door guy. Educate yourself. Give it a shot. Is $10 too much? Bitcoin gives you freedom. Just rubs me the wrong way for some reason. Take a look through the thread and you'll notice. So yeah, it kind of summarizes what I've been feeling. I just don't like this. People trying to push Bitcoin on people. I have a simple rule in my life. If someone has to sell me on a product, I don't need the product. They need my money. Okay, cool. So this is the mainstream point of view on Bitcoin right now, and it looks like we're not going to have a bull run anytime soon. The mainstream, the average user, retail investor got hurt. They lost all the money. They're not just going to buy crypto anytime soon in the next 6 months, in my opinion. We're not just going to start another bull run just like that. We're going to need the sentiment to change. And for the sentiment to change, you're just going to need time. There are some things that they just take time over years. I'll give you an example. There was this singer that was really hated, like Justin Bieber, right? He made a song, Baby, and people really hated on him. And then what happened is it took him a few years of making consistent songs that were good and guys liked them too and weren't like too girly, right? And that's when people changed their perspective on him. But it didn't happen overnight. It had to have a natural, kind of like fix over time. And now Justin Bieber is considered a mainstream singer. Like guys like him, girls like him, adults, grown-ups, kids, everyone. But to have this change in the mainstream perception, right, of being like a 13-year-old boy, right, to singing, to becoming a singer that's kind of like everybody likes, to have that shift, he had to work his ass off for a few years. He had to write like a lot of different hits, songs that did really well for the mainstream, for grown-ups as well. And then slowly over time, without people even noticing, his image, his public image shifted and it changed, right? So the same thing with Bitcoin. You cannot just expect it to change just like that, and people are going to forget the fact that they lost all the money in it or they went down 80% in 2018. They're going to need time for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to need to mature in that regard. Can't believe I just compared Justin Bieber to Bitcoin, but what do you know? Every day you learn something new. Anyways, we got this kidnapping right now in Norway. I really hope the situation ends with no one being hurt. But it's a shame that cryptocurrencies are used like this for for ransom for a wife of some rich guy. It really is a shame that this is the case. But yeah, it's really a shame. So Nick Szabo says that right now central banks could turn to crypto to support reserves, to shore up the reserves. Yeah, it is definitely a very useful tool, right? So this is definitely going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen in 2019. I feel like it's still too early. But this tool, like Trace Mayer says, like Nick Szabo says, crypto and Bitcoin are great ways to store your money in a way that's very secure and very hard to confiscate. And there's a lot of benefits to it. The biggest downside really is just the volatility that is huge, right? Now, moving on, we got so the founder of 10x, Julian Hozep. I thought he had a really good reputation. I guess I missed. I guess I was wrong. I mean, if you look at what's happening right now here, he was associated with some money grab. Let me find the original information. Yeah, I cannot find it right here. Let me see. He was involved with some project that was pretty shady. I can't find it right now. Um, and then we get Crypto Chimps. Let's see who Julian Hozep really is. And then he takes off his mask, and then it's what's up, 10x. I love it. So he was associated with another project that's unrelated to 10x, and that hurt his reputation. Now he's leaving, and people are upset. So Diddy Carter on Telegram, he said this: 10x CEO is leaving the company. 10x card are still not shipped after almost a year out of service. This is why we're currently in a bear market. ICO bubble burst. People lost faith in crypto and blockchain startups. So this is crazy. I think I saw somewhere that he raised $80 million in an ICO. I think I saw that number somewhere. And it's a shame that he's stepping down right now and it ends up like this. So what happened is he pretty much dumped his tokens. It looked like it. So you can see here that the price of their token, pay token compared to Bitcoin, went down 54% on a span of 2 weeks, from December 25 to January 9. And this is probably because of him just dumping his tokens. So we got here a case of someone looking into his actual address and looking at the dump and what happened. And he just completely screwed over all the token holders of 10x, right? So this just does not look good. There was a 200 Bitcoin sell candle on the 30 minutes on 30th December. Usually the volume was around 10 Bitcoin. Is that a coincidence, right? And announces Julian is leaving 10x, and more than likely a direct result of Julian Lioness tainting the company. Yeah, so there was something with Lioness, a company called Lioness, that gave them a bad image. They had obviously made this decision prior to the holidays. Julian knows, dumps his pay token during the snapshot pump. You really can't make this up. Ha ha ha, you sorry pay holder. So it is really a shame that it ended up just like this. So where is 10x? Let me see if I can find it. 10x. It's not even on the top 100 anymore. 10x pay token. Yeah, let's take a look. So you can see here it's bleeding, right? Let's zoom in on just the last few months when you compare it to Bitcoin. So yeah, you can see here we had just went downhill, right? And then he announces that he quits here. So it looked like he just dumped his tokens over here, and then everybody got completely screwed. So they had a pump, and then he kind of thought that this was a good opportunity to sell, I guess, and then he started selling. and then it just went down massively since then. It really is a shame that that's what it's like with cryptocurrencies and altcoins. That's why we have to be really careful. Also, on a different topic, we got here Amazon doing a survey, something like that. Some people asked how loyal are they to Amazon, and if Amazon would offer a bank service, would their customers use it? And people said that overall, yes, they would use it. Amazon is crushing traditional banks on loyalty scores. The challenge for banks become more simple and digital. So Amazon is a position right now that they could go against banks, especially with the fintech, just developing. So these companies can now compete with it. So that was a survey of 6,000 US consumers, makes the first direct comparison of customer loyalty scores for Amazon and US banks. Wow. So consumers give Amazon a net promoter score of 47 versus banks have 31 score on average, or 18 for the national bank average. Wow. So Amazon is absolutely crushing it compared to banks, right? So they might go against banking soon. Let me see here. If banks think Amazon is not coming to eat their lunch, they are insane. Innovate or die. Right. So yeah, banks are just offering worse and worse services. And these tech companies are now at the position where they can start to compete. And that was going to be very interesting. And now we also have Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that are gaining more and more traction over time. Okay, also we got Canaan considering an IPO in the US. Company was earlier targeting to raise $1 billion from listing. Okay, so it's cool to see companies beside Bitmain that are getting big in the mining space for Bitcoin. That is definitely good. Also, we get a really good thread by NM, Bite Size Capital, talking about why Bitcoin is anti-fragile and why it is very, very strong. They say Bitcoin is the world's first asset that benefits from its critics, making fools of its hijackers and proves naysayers wrong even when they are right. So I don't want to talk about it too much because we did talk about it a lot. But basically, they just show here how people attack Bitcoin again and again, say Bitcoin is dead, and yet Bitcoin survives. Red poison squared, Bitcoin is a fraud, Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, but still Bitcoin does very well, right? So they just talk about it and they show you how even though Bitcoin crashed 80+% multiple times in history, it always comes back very, very strong. So the definition of anti-fragility, which is really cool, is anything that has more upside than downside from random events or certain shocks. So if you try to attack it, and it just becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, that is anti-fragile. Whereas if you try to attack it and it breaks, then it's a fragile thing, which is like most things. And when you find anti-fragility stuff, that is really great. People that, companies or people or stuff that is stronger and stronger. And this is why I'm really proud of this YouTube channel, because we've been doing better and better the lower Bitcoin has been going. Like the worse the crypto market has been going, the better this channel has actually been doing. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is somewhat anti-fragile, right? So this is a cool thing. But definitely not as anti-fragile as Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been around for 10 years, so it's nowhere even close. So yeah, it's really cool to see that. And let me see. Every time Bitcoin dies, it becomes harder to kill. And yeah, now killing Bitcoin it's possible, but it looks very hard, incredibly hard, right? Also, we got a report that Japan might consider an approval of a Bitcoin ETF. I saw that right now the answer is no, but it's still a possibility. And Jake Chervinsky says that if Japan would approve a Bitcoin ETF, would it affect the SEC? Would they be like, okay, maybe we'll approve it too? The answer is not really. The SEC rarely defers to regulators in other countries. They're pretty much the leaders, not the followers. But a regulated ETF with volume does help solve the manipulation problem. So it's not going to cause an ETF approval anytime soon, but hey, it cannot hurt. Now, something else that cannot hurt is that we got an advertisement from Gemini on the crypto bus. So they printed this huge advertisement on the bus, crypto without chaos, and then they shield Gemini, their cryptocurrency exchange. Find the Gemini around Manhattan all week. Really fantastic work by the twins, even though they're too heavy, they call for too much regulation. I think overall they're amazing entrepreneurs and they're really good for this space. Now, someone that's not doing this well right now is Coinbase. Coinbase right now is going through it's weird because I saw somewhere that they said that they hired more people, but now I'm seeing here a different report Massive story by FinTech Frank that they're struggling big time in the bear market. It generated most of its revenue for 2017, 2018 in speculative mania. Now, in the bear market, it's hard and they're not making as much money. So they say here, remember, Coinbase will likely want to IPO in 2020 or 2021, and then we'll need the massive 2019 revenue-wise, but where's the money going to come from? And they aren't going to get that in the bear market from just custody. This is why they're now trying to broaden their listing, the reach, by listing a bunch of useless tokens, right? So they're trying to list a bunch of tokens. They're going YOLO. They're listing all these crappy altcoins, right? So now they're trying to make money from it, similar to Binance. On top of listing hundreds of tokens soon, they will also focus more on the international markets. They want to get some of the revenues that Binance is bringing in, and in my opinion, going from regulatory compliant fiat on-ramp to a crappy coin dealer is just not a good idea. So now they're focusing on the existing users instead of trying to get outside users. Also, we got some concerns with Consensus that they face a hurdle to 2019. They say that Joe Lubin, the founder of Consensus, is making it difficult for Consensus to survive, saying that he is somewhat hard to deal with, and then until now, as long as he liked your project, you would be fine. Just rely on the fact that it's all funded by Papa Joe. So they got here discussions about how it was more difficult to invest because he was involved and he wanted to have a majority stake in projects or something like that. Let me see. Yeah, so they just share here some issues. So right now, Consensus and Ethereum in general are not in such a good position to be in. And this article talks about, again, what we just said about Coinbase. So they say here that Coinbase is pivoting from going for institutional efforts to instead going to crypto funds and going towards the existing space. So kind of like Binance, they're focusing on the existing users instead of just trying to get kind of like institutional efforts. And as such, Jonathan Kellner, the former CEO of Instinet, is no longer joining the firm. Now, also, we got here news that a single Dash user, is possessing 51% of the hash rate for Dash, the cryptocurrency. A single miner is mining more than 50% of all Dash blocks, so it is as centralized as it gets, right? Pretty much over 2.2 million earned by a single miner. Crazy. So yeah, I'm very skeptical of Dash. I think that I don't know if they will survive in the long term. I think it's a very big question mark. I think they are very shady. I don't really trust them as well. Moving on, Ethereum Foundation is going to give a $5 million grant to Parity Technologies to help them develop a Casper sharding, light clients, developer tools, QA, audits, and infrastructure improvements. Okay, so cool to see Ethereum building. And also we got here an image of the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. Sounds very, very, very calming and no stress at all, man. It's backed by the full faith, man. Just believe, right? Moving on, we got a scoop here that AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint are all selling your data, your real-time location, to anyone pretty much. So the thing is, they sell it to a few companies, but then these companies resell it to pretty much anyone, including bounty hunters. So someone paid $300 on the black market to track him. So he wanted to see if they really are selling that information. And they found that pretty much no hacking was required. You just had to pay, and they got access to your information, which is absolutely insane that you can see that. You can see here they got like price line for that, like how much you want to pay to get access to that information. So people are selling our information, our data, and you can find out, you can track someone, you can follow them, you can do a lot of bad stuff to people that by compromising their privacy and knowing where they are in real time. So this location, how accurate is it? I think according to the article, I saw that in a range of, it was 0.3 miles or 0.5 miles, you could know where someone is. So you could get like a pretty accurate snapshot that they're in some area. So you're not going to know exactly where they are, but you're going to get a pretty generic idea of where they are. So that is very, very concerning, and we definitely need to find some solution for this. I don't think that this is a healthy way for the space in the long term. Also, Ethereum developers just launched the world's fastest blockchain explorer, according to Yahoo Finance, Nginx. So I see here the word PR Newswire. Is that a paid sponsorship or something? I'm not sure. But they just launched Engine XIO, which allows you to, it's a blockchain explorer for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I think for other projects as well. Supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and 721 and 1151 collectibles. Okay, good to see people working on the Ethereum ecosystem even more. Also, Dave Rubin continues to talk about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. It says, this is why Jordan Peterson and I are leaving Patreon and working on an alternative. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me that crypto and decentralization will have to play a significant role when it comes to avoiding censorship, right? So someone was asking, can you imagine how scary it would be to live in a world where your livelihood depended on having the correct politics, right? It is very scary. Now, something pretty interesting that's happening right now, apparently Jeff Bezos is going through a divorce, the richest man in the world with a net worth of $137 billion. So he has so much more money. It's crazy how much money he has. He's worth more money than Bitcoin right now. The total is worth almost twice as much as Bitcoin total market cap, which is absolutely insane. But it looks like this is not going to be the case now that he's getting a divorce. So Jeff Bezos' wife is a better investor than all of us. So now they are getting divorced after being married for 25 years. And you can see it's pretty funny on the graph. Someone actually showed when they got married, and they showed the value of Amazon over the years. And you can see that they get divorced right here, which looks like it's pretty funny timing that she chose to divorce right over here, right near the top of Amazon. That is pretty good timing right there. And I hope that they do sort things out. But it is going to be interesting. What happens when the richest man in the world is going through a divorce financially? What is that going to look like? Is it going to lose like, $30 billion? Is it going to lose like half of the money? Is it going to lose like, $67 billion? Like, what is it going to look like, right? So that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And we got Elon Musk doing shaking hand with China's premier Li Keqiang after breaking ground on Tesla's $5 billion factory in Shanghai. So they are here shaking hands. Tesla is going strong into the Chinese market, and they're looking to do some developments there. So that's cool. It's very hard to penetrate China as a Western company, but I believe in Elon. If someone has constantly done amazing stuff, it's definitely is him. So we'll see how he does in China there. Also, can XRP catch on? So Ripple keeps boasting more and more partnerships. I think they just passed 200 partnerships or something like that, banking partners, that sort of thing. But the question is, like, will XRP actually have a use case? Right now, it still does not. They have some limited use case, but overall, there's no reason for the token price to rise, really. There's so many tokens, it's very centralized. So there is a question mark with XRP. How is that going to happen? Now, finally, guys, before I end this video, I'd just like to ask you, if you're not sure how to make money in 2019, I really recommend you guys consider learning smart contract programming. Right now, like I showed you, there's a huge trend with people going into crypto. There's a lot of money that's going to come into the space in the next few years. And as such, there's going to be huge demand. There is big demand right now for people and companies that want to integrate with smart contracts, create their own cryptocurrency, create their own decentralized application, work on the blockchain. And they need smart contract developer. But because this niche, this skill is very new, there's very short supply of people that know this skill, and there's a lot of demand. So high demand, short supply, this is why the salaries are very high. And these companies will pay you anywhere from $85,000 to $145,000 a year as a smart contract developer. So I'm doing a webinar that shows you, even if you have no programming experience, how to get started learning it. So I'll put a link to it in the description below this video. So check the link in the description, click it, sign up. I'll be more than happy to see you. I'm actually a developer. My first business was making Android apps. They got millions of downloads when I was 18 out of high school. No programming experience, no fancy degrees. I just learned it, and I'd like to share with you the same principles that I use that you can crush it now. Back then, the trend was Android apps. Right now, in 2019, the trend is definitely, blockchain dApps, decentralized gaming, decentralized. There's so much potential for everything, and we're just starting to see. We're right at the beginning right now. This is a great time to become part of this revolution. So I'll be really happy to see you. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and much love. See you soon. Bye-bye.